Hi, my loves. Welcome back to part 2. If you have not listened to part 1 with Britt Piper, go ahead and listen to that first. But here we're going to tap into so much more goodness about how to listen to your intuition. Getting into the body, you're going to start to tap into the different voices and understand what your voice, like your intuition, how it speaks, and how you can start to understand what it sounds like. We also talk about the beautifulness in the pause. We talk about being able to experience joy. And when you experience joy, you also can manage feeling a lot of the hard emotions as well. We really get into the journey of life and being a human being and how we can all relate and having so much grace and compassion for ourselves in this human experience. I'm so excited for you guys to dive into this episode. So let's get right into it. When I had a lot of questions come through, I saw a lot of questions about what to do if you feel disconnected or uncomfortable in your own body. So almost everything we're speaking to, which I can relate to, is it almost feels overwhelming to even start the process of getting into the body, into pausing and resourcing. It almost feels, how do you do that? Or I feel scared to enter into the body. What would you say to that listener?
So I think when we think about our feelings, we often think that there's just an emotional component to it. And in the somatic experiencing world, we see a lot of different ways that we can touch into our feelings. So for some of us, we have no emotional language. We're like, I'm feeling something, but I don't know what that emotion is, you know? And so I'd love to walk people through maybe SciBAM. I think SciBAM would be a really great starting point. So how to feel a feeling is you can use the tool of SciBAM, which stands for sensation, image, which is like, is there an image? Is there an object? Is there a visualization? Is there a place that comes with that? Behavior. So as you're feeling something, do you notice that your body is doing something? This could be posture. It could be movement. It could be I'm looking away. I'm closing in. And then affect is emotion. So some people, they're like, I know I feel this, but I can't track it. And then the M of SciBAM is meaning, which is where a lot of us live. I know the story behind it. I know the thought. I know the cognition. So all you need is one starting point. You just need one foot in the door. And sometimes what we find is that as you start to explore and get curious about, I'm feeling something, I don't know what it is. Can I notice a sensation? Well, the sensation is there's heat in my face. I'm feeling so hot behind my ears. And as I'm noticing that heat, now I'm noticing my jaw is clenching. Now my jaw is clenching. I'm noticing my spine is raising up. Now I'm noticing my fists are closing. And this might not happen as quickly, of course, but you really take time. And then you might notice an image. I see myself as like a bear right now. Like I just want to stand on my hind legs. And now the affect or the emotion is I feel anger. And the meaning is this is not okay. I'm actually not comfortable with this. So it's a really kind of soft and gentle way to start to touch into our feelings that really meets people in whatever strong language they might already have.
So would you recommend them picking one of those or kind of entering into all of them when they start to tap in?
I would say to touch into one.
Yeah.
And for a lot of us, like even as people are listening right now, they might be like, oh, that's me. I'm really strong in this. So for you, and I've told you this before, you're really strong in image. You have wonderful analogies that you love to give. You love looking around. You love orienting. Imagery is big for you. It's a wonderful way that you can process emotions, but then it might lead you into something else. And now I'm noticing this sensation. So my invitation to people would be to just kind of lean into like, out of all those channels of SciBAM, was there one that I felt like I could maybe try that out? And then just work with that first. And if anything else naturally starts to emerge, then great.
Can we talk about pendulation? Because I feel like we do that a lot in our sessions where we invite in the tension in my jaw is a big one for me. Whenever we start to tap into something in my life, I feel it so much in my jaw. I start to feel, shrugging in my shoulders, maybe a little tightness in my belly. And again, guys, this is something that Britt has beautifully taught me to be this aware and noticing what's going on and not judging it, just absolutely noticing it. But with that, you also bring me back into the regulation and the resourcing where I look at the ocean, and allows me to pendulate back and forth and actually be able to hold that tension that I feel in my body, which at the end of the day is what I've been running from for so long. I didn't want to feel that tension. It felt icky. It felt bad. It felt scary. And you've given me such a gift to be able to tap into the tension, but then also pendulate to the other side and find that ease and calmness. And that has built my capacity to handle everyday's life to a degree that I am forever grateful for. So I'd love to share with them.
I'm feeling that in the resonance right now. I think you and I are both just lighting up as you were talking about that, because it really has been so beautiful to witness. And you said the word capacity. I was like, she's talking about capacity. So capacity and pendulation. So, let me give you an example, and then I'll walk you through this just to make it more relatable. You see two people who are experiencing the same situation. They have the same emotional response or somatic response. They're both maybe frustrated. One person is so frustrated and so irate, they need a moment. And the other person is like, I can be with this anger, but I'm not going to be taken out by it. The difference between the two people, it's the same anger. They just have a different capacity. So what I'm saying is sometimes it's not that the emotion is too big, it's that your capacity is too small. So we work to expand your capacity to do what you just beautifully said, is hold more, move through more. And that comes with practice and experience. Again, your nervous system has to experience it can't just learn it. So pendulation is a term that was coined by Dr. Peter Levine, who's the developer of somatic experiencing. And think of it like a grandfather clock that goes back and forth. And this is that biorhythm that I was talking about. And what it does when it goes back and forth is it's going from deactivation, which you can also just think the nervous system ladder again, which is rest and digest. And then it sways over into activation, which is all of those wonderful states at the bottom of the ladder. But again, we go back and forth, our biorhythm, all day long. Now, what we work to do in somatic experiencing is build up a foundation of deactivation first. We resource. And as you kind of just illustrated, the more that you can feel safe in your body, the more that you have a capacity to move into deactivation, the pendulum is going to sway back equally in the other direction. You're expanding your capacity. You're expanding your ability to contain and move through hard moments. And that's, I think, what can sometimes confuse people, because when they get into this work, they're like, I'm experiencing anxiety, or I'm experiencing these things in my body before. And it's like, that's because you have the supportive and safe structures that your body needed to move through it in the first place. Yeah.
You keep going.
So again, I think that goes back to, like, we don't have to sit in the suffering to heal and to become more resilient. So much of it is the ability to slow down, to be with presence, to be with something that feels good. And the more that you do that, the more that you then have that capacity to move into what doesn't feel good.
I have two life examples that come to mind that this has beautifully played out for me recently that you will love to hear, because as my person that I work with, it's nice to notice how much this is coming into play and how much I've grown in this area. So capacity, I feel like when I think back to, even a year ago, my capacity was absolutely not where I'm at now. And I think about life decisions that we have to make every single day. And I had a moment where I had a situation happening with a friend, and I shared something with her that I felt like I kind of wish I didn't. And so I started to go into a lot of tension and feelings in my body. And usually what would happen is my mind would start to absolutely try and figure it out. Let's fix it. Let's create an entire storyline around it. Let's live in this absolute tension. And I actually don't know how to move out of it. And I so beautifully saw it happening. And instead I decided to, before even problem solving of should I reach out to the friend and have a conversation with her, I decided to come from a place that actually felt more me and from a version that actually I would want to communicate to her from. So I decided to hold the tension. So I sat there and I felt it in my shoulders, felt a tightness in my chest. I can even feel it now when I'm speaking to it. I can feel my chest kind of tightening, and like the body literally remembers, like it was kind of a moment of just feeling really uncomfortable. And as I sat with that, then I looked out into, I like held it for a minute or so and breathed into it and allowed it to know that I'm here with it. We're okay. But I'm like going to stay with you in this rather than numb out, maybe pick up my phone or call someone in panic. Then I decided to look out into the ocean, which is my favorite form of resourcing. And if I don't have wood around me, I look into the beautiful ocean. And just looking at the waves instantly calms my body down. Like I feel the softness in my shoulders. I feel the relaxation in my voice. I feel the clearness in my mind start to like dissipate. Like truly the thoughts start to calm down as I really stay present with the waves, look at the color of them, look at how they're washing up, look at the textures, the noise. And as I do that, I saw myself actually having clarity of what I needed to do next. And coming from such a place of softness, openness, clearness, and I got to actually communicate with that friend and share what was on my heart. And it was a moment that I could not have done a year ago. And this is part of the little things. That's even just like a minor thing, but that is so impactful in my days to let myself know I am so here for you. I'm not leaving you in those moments of hardship. And I actually know how to move through it where we can go back and forth and find that inner self that actually has the wisdom instead of the mind trying to figure it out and all the data that it has that probably is old.
Yeah. It sounds like you were starting to find and lean into your own intuition, right? And our intuition, we talk about like our intuition, our gut instincts, that is a felt thing. And we often think that when we move slower and we come into more simple that we're not being productive, but it just gives us an opportunity to really align with what we really feel is authentic, authentically right for us.
I'd love to tap into intuition because I feel like that's something I came to you for as well.
Yeah.
You said, what's your goal? And I said, beyond not being in survival, I'd also love to be able to hear my truth and to stand behind my truth and live in it. And I feel like we have a lot of questions of women asking how they do that, how they know to listen to their intuition, what it sounds like. What do you feel like, or how would you share with someone of how to understand what their intuition is or how to listen to their internal compass?
Yeah. So I think so much of it comes from the body. And when you become more embodied, you can start to lean into and listen to the whispers of the body. And you might be like, okay, but my mind is pretty clear. So why do I need to do that? So I'll just speak really quickly. We've kind of gotten to this belief system where we believe that the mind is really in control. And what we have found is that the body is actually in control, believe it or not. And so we have this wonderful nerve called the vagus nerve. That's where polyvagal theory comes from. And it's known as the information superhighway of yourself. But it's a bidirectional nerve, so it goes both ways, between body and brain and body. And what we found is that 80% of those messages go from the body up to the brain. Those are known as efferent fibers, and only 20% go from the brain down to the body, which are afferent fibers, which means that your body has a lot more say when it comes to how you feel, how you show up in the world, how you respond, react, and how you think. And so that's why we say your state creates your story. The state that you're in is going to lay the filter for the thoughts that are in your mind. And so when we are really disconnected from our body and we're just kind of white knuckling and we're like, I'm going to think my way through everything. I'm going to mindset it away. I'm going to, plan everything in my mind without checking in with how the body feels. We're missing a big part of us. We're leaving it behind. And what happens is we can start down this path. And then eventually we come to this road and we recognize, wait, this is not the life that I wanted. And I definitely found that for myself. I feel like a lot of women have found that too. But for me, it was more so I was, I don't want to say chasing. I was so consumed by my career. And then when I became a mom, I was like, this actually isn't a pace that's mine anymore. But I only knew that because I was listening to my body. Did it make sense in my head? Absolutely not. Does it make sense that I work part-time, that I homeschool my kids? Like, no, it does not make sense. But intuitively, that's what my body wants.
So you're saying your intuition was sharing with you, okay, we're going to work part-time, more time being a mom, less time at work. But your mind was saying, what are we doing here? We should be working way more. Yeah.
Yeah. Mine's like, that doesn't make sense. That doesn't make sense, Britt. How are you going to make that work? But I really took intentional time again to slow down. And I think that unplugging, especially in this modern world that we live in, is so incredibly important. So things that we do, like we don't use our phones as alarms. We use a little, the Hatch alarm thing. I take quiet time every morning by myself before my family wakes up to be with me. I don't get on my phone. I am not on social media on the weekends. We have phone-free hours from like 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. And I also am just very intentional about having moments of solitude in my life. I used to live and work overseas. I traveled alone. And even now when I'm traveling for work, I take that intentional time. Like yesterday between interviews, I was like, I'm going to go sit at the beach, even though I have 20 minutes, no phone. I didn't even take a picture of it. We take a picture of everything we do. So I'm going to go sit at the beach and I'm going to just be with myself. And I think sometimes we're so afraid of silence because we so badly want to belong to something and with others. But when we do that, we kind of forget that like, I belong here with me too. And that silence is really full. I'm crying, sorry. That silence is really full of answers. It really is. And so I think unplugging, learning the language of your body, learning to listen to your body and honor it too. Here's the thing. Once you start honoring, like even when it doesn't make sense, like that small thing of, yeah, I actually don't want to go to dinner tonight. I know I said yes, but wait a second. My shoulders are collapsing. My stomach is in knots. I actually I don't feel like I want to go to dinner tonight. How often do we say yes without taking a pause? And I've told you about the power of a pause. Pausing and feeling into something is such a wonderful way to really align with that intuition.
The example you gave, I know that is just ringing so true to myself and so many even friends that I have conversations with, is the body saying something, but the mind is saying something different. So the example of going to dinner, your body says, you know what, tonight actually isn't the night. I already planned to go to dinner. I've told everyone I'm coming, but my body is truly telling me it's not the time. But then the mind comes in right after you make that decision. I think it's like a millisecond, and it comes in and it's like, no, you have to go to the dinner. You have to do this. You can't be that kind of friend. No one's going to understand. How dare you cancel? So my question is, what is happening when that happens? And how do we actually be supportive to what our body's saying rather than what the intellect is coming in and saying?
Yeah. I love that question. So I will say that over time, those little voices in your head, they start to get quieter and quieter when you become more embodied and more led with intuition. And that comes with experience, which creates, so the more that you can experience listening to your intuition, it creates then evidence for the body that I made the right choice, which then creates new expectations. Expectation of when I make the right choice for myself, good things will happen. And so those voices start to get, rather than being in the driver's seat or the, passenger seat screaming in your ear, they're like back in the trunk, but they're still there and we can still honor them and be like, yeah, when that comes up, I recognize there's a part of me who wants to still show up in this way, who doesn't want to disappoint others. And can you just hold space for that? And then notice in your body the different areas of tension. Where am I noticing the intuitive part of me that wants to set this boundary, we could say? And then how am I noticing the other part of me that doesn't want to set this boundary? And as I oscillate my attention between the two, what starts to happen? And I also think it's important to just state that there are times where we can't honor what the body needs. And sometimes when we talk about embodiment, we think that that means I have to follow my intuition 24/7. But we live in a world realistically where sometimes we have to do things that we don't want to do, that are hard. And so it's not just about feeling safe and aligned all the time. It's also about feeling safe when we're not aligned. And that's a capacity, area for growth too, that we can all work on, including myself.
No, seriously, same. I mean, I love to just give examples that you guys know that this is the real work that I'm doing. But truly, even in our session today, like I had a moment where there's so much that I want to share, but I'm not ready to share yet.
Yeah.
And Britt so beautifully just allowed so much space for me to decide. And I think for me, I felt that energy of my intuition saying, you know, I could feel it in my body. It's like a very soft, it's a grounded feeling. We're saying like, hey, maybe we're not ready yet. Where my mind was so much of, no, you got to share, you got to help these people, you got to, you know, give them your journey. And I love that my mind wants to help so many, but I also need to look out for myself too. And you beautifully held me in that. So I think continuing to understand the difference of what that feels like. And it does take a lot of practice. There's days where I'm having a harder time distinguishing. So then I just guess. I'm like, maybe we'll go with this one, you know, if we're doing the best we can. But
it's like learning a language, which is what I told you at the very beginning. And when you learn any new language, I was never good at language learning. That's why I did sign language in high school.
oh wait, I love that.
Yeah, I don't remember it, much of it.
I love you.
Yeah, I love you. But like learning any new language, you're not fluent in it for a while. It takes practice and you fumble through, you get it wrong, you mispronounce things, you don't hear it right. And so as you learn that language of you and your body and your story, it's going to take time. It's going to take trial and error. But the fact is that you're showing up for yourself. And I just want to point out one thing you just did. You just mentioned that you said, I love that there's this part of me that wants to show up for everyone else. And there's also this part of me that wants to show up for myself. And so again, it's about like what you just did right there was you showed up for yourself. And so the relational piece there, again, when you hear how you walk through your process, there's so much self-love, self-understanding, and self-compassion. And so again, just coming back to that is the most important part of the work. We can talk about, you know, moving up and down the ladder and all these things, but if that relational component is foundational.
What do you feel like you doing this work has, I mean, I feel like you've shared so much, but what was the big moment for you that you felt when you started to do this work with the relationship with yourself? Like, what did you start to feel and see where your life got so much more different?
Yeah. So for me, again, growing up with the shame really comes from that abandonment wound, just deep, deep abandonment wound. And I think that when I started to meet myself with less shame, because I'm sitting here talking about like, let's show up and relate to ourselves and do these things from a place of self-love and not self-hatred. That's kind of what we're saying, not self-criticism, not I need to fix myself. That was the big turning point. And that kind of happened, I would say, not when I started doing somatic work. When I started doing somatic work, I was just focused on the technique and the practices and all the things. But then I was still finding that there were these voices of shame. Like when, for instance, 4 years ago, I got my book deal and it was a huge deal. And I remember my husband looking at me and he like had tears in his eyes. He was so excited for me. And I'm just like, I'm stiff as a board. And he's like, be happy for yourself, celebrate yourself. Like you deserve this. And so what I have found is that the more that I can celebrate and savor the small moments in my life, it was less again about like, how can I move through my anxiety that's coming up? How can I work with the anger that's coming here? How can I work with the shame? And it was more so like, you have been such a gift in my life. And I'm so sorry that these parts had to stay around for so long to protect me. When I met them with a lot more compassion and maybe even curiosity of like, hey, what are you doing here today? I noticed that there was such a softening in my life. I'm able to hold so much more of not just the areas where I want to be better, because we always want to evolve and be better, but I do it from a place of like, I love myself and I deserve to be better than I was yesterday, not I need to be better. Otherwise, I'm not going to be accepted. So I don't know if I'm answering your question, but just slowing down and meeting myself with more of the compassion, which has really been like, how can I show up with compassion in my body when I'm having a hard moment, has then started to shift that overall mindset of my life and how I relate to myself spiritually, energetically.
I'd love for you to tap into the point that you just made with the book of almost your husband celebrating and you having that moment of, being stiff as a board. And I reached out to you the other day about joy and allowing ourselves to experience joy, especially when we've been through a lot of things. So can you speak to how we can experience more joy, how we can marinate it more, and why it sometimes is difficult to experience joy?
Yeah. Yeah. I always say David was my biggest cheerleader when I wasn't even a fan of myself.
Oh, go David.
He's the best.
We need a David.
Yeah. So, I think that joy we can look at as like this big, huge, beautiful emotion and experience. And I know you're really good at like glimmer walks and, noticing the small, subtle nuances of joy in everyday life. And I would say that would be a starting point for someone. Joy has a lot of different layers to it. So maybe instead of just saying joy, is that presence for you? Is it connectedness? Is it peace? Is it feeling content? Is it excitement? Is it happiness? Everyone's going to have a different flavor of what joy feels like. So I'd maybe recommend breaking that down in a way that feels not so intimidating, like I want to be full of joy. And then setting intentions around like, how can I feel that in my body today? We do this in the program, the Body for Healing program. We set intentions every morning. How do I want to feel today? We pick an emotion or a sensation, and then we set an intention. And it's not, what do I want to get done? What does my mind want to do? And then we go out and we seek that out. And it can be for like just 1 to 2 minutes. It doesn't have to be this big thing. But I do think it is important, just as you said, to give context that when you start to, again, tap into the things that feel good, that means you're also now opening yourself up to the things that don't feel good, right? And that's what vitality is. That's what being alive on this roller coaster of life is. Like, we want to be here. Like, if you want to be here and you want to be in your life, you have to be here for all of it. The most terrifying thing to the biology in your body is to feel nothing, because it means that you're not alive. And so I think that like when we sign up for this, we're really signing up to feel all of it. So if you want to feel joy, that means that you're also going to feel the things that you haven't been ready yet for.
I'd love to leave our listeners with anything that's on your heart, with especially talking about somatics and having you here. And I know that's a big question, but I feel like you speak about this all the time. You see so many people. And what I can feel so deeply, and you've allowed me to feel, and I hope you guys can feel, is you are so not alone in what you are going through. It also is such a personal journey. Your nervous system is so personal to you and your capacity. And I hope you give yourself the most grace in your day to day. And that's me speaking that to myself so big. But what do you feel like is something that you feel called to share with our community here to end on this note of them feeling so held from someone like yourself who has done so much work and seen so many people that are going through similar things?
Yeah. I think sometimes people can look to other people who have, quote, done the work or like made it to the other side. And it's like they look at them, maybe people look at you and the incredible transformation you've done or the healing that I've experienced, and they think that, oh, well, it's something special about them, right? It's something special that they have that I don't have. And I think I just want to leave people with this reminder that we all have this natural capacity to move through the hardest of moments, and that we were designed for that. When you think of where we come from as a species, as human beings, we have adapted and grown through so much evolution in ourselves, in our makeup. And I know that sounds very dramatic, but it's true when you think about where you come from. Like, you are so capable, you are so qualified. And yeah, and then I think I would just leave it with like, I hope that we stop looking at everything, everyone, and ourselves as a problem to fix. And we start remembering that we belong just as we are, that we don't need to prove ourselves, and that there's a lot of internal wisdom to tap into when we're ready for it.
I know that I will repeat those last couple of lines for myself every day. So thank you for sharing that. And I feel Britt's absolute intuitive soul here today. So I'm so grateful for you showing up and sharing with my community. I know that it's touched so many, and you guys, if you're listening to this like I was and you're needing that support, you're like, this is my next move. I'm ready for it. Because I think also there is a moment in time where we are ready to tap in certain ways. And if this is, you know, getting on those heartstrings, I know Britt has so many ways you guys can access her work even more. She has the Body First Healing program. So it's an entire program you guys can tap into. And she truly guides you like she does with me in this program. And she shows up on live calls, Q&As. She takes you to a nervous system gym. It's literally online, but you know, the choreo of that. And she also has her beautiful book, The Body First Healing. And I am so grateful for your wisdom that you've poured into these resources. Also, her on social media. That's how I found her. I started saving her videos, and I probably saved many videos before I decided to make the leap and message her and just say, hey, I really would love to lean in and work with you because my heart is really calling for someone like yourself. So lean into and celebrate that you are wanting to do this work, because I do think it's such a beautiful gift that you will take for the rest of your life. And I'm so grateful for everyone who is here listening and being open to Britt and her beautiful story and my journey too, as it's been an absolute joy to share. So thank you guys so much. And Britt, thank you for being here and being such a miracle in my life.
It's been an honor. All of it. Thank you.
Love you.